Hello, everybody. Georgia's top dog, Kirby Smart, is now the highest paid college football coach in the land. The university made the announcement this morning. It's a record 10-year deal worth $112.5 million through the 2031 season.
Kirby Smart just signed a contract worth $130 million. That doesn't make him a football coach. That makes him the CEO of a billion-dollar enterprise. While most fans see college football as Saturday traditions, the reality is that the University of Georgia has built a financial machine generating $147 million a year. But winning titles wasn't just about finding good players. It was about specific financial levers, from a $400 million facility overhaul to aggressive capital allocation that turned spending into trophies. Today, we're looking at the balance sheet behind the dynasty. Because in modern college football, winning isn't just about talent, it's about return on investment. To understand how this machine works, you have to go back to 2016. When Kirby Smart walked into Athens, the program was financially healthy, generating about $124 million, but it was infrastructure poor compared to the gold standard at Alabama. The previous regime ran a surplus. Smart demanded a deficit. He immediately initiated a facilities arms race that would make most NFL owners blush. We're talking about over $175 million poured into concrete and glass within just a few years. The $63 million renovation of Sanford Stadium's West End Zone wasn't just about locker rooms, it was about creating a recruiting showpiece. Then came the massive $80 million expansion of the Butts-Mehre Heritage Hall. These weren't cosmetic upgrades, they were calculated capital expenditures designed to close the gap with Tuscaloosa. But buildings don't play downs, you need talent, and that's where the second financial lever kicks in: recruiting spend. In the corporate world, this is customer acquisition cost. In the SEC, it's private jets and steak dinners. Georgia consistently topped the national spending charts, dropping between $3 million and $4 million annually just to get recruits on campus. While other schools were trying to be efficient, Georgia was treating recruiting as a volume game where outspending the competition was the only acceptable strategy. This wasn't just travel costs, it was building a massive support staff army, analysts, recruiting coordinators, and media teams that dwarfed what other programs were paying. This investment secured consistent number one recruiting classes, stocking the roster with future NFL talent. Now you might wonder where this cash came from. It wasn't just ticket sales. The athletic department launched the Magil Society, a high-tier donor club. If you wanted access, you had to pledge major capital gifts over 5 years. This was brilliant financial engineering. It moved donor money from general goodwill buckets into specific capital project funding. They essentially crowdfunded their infrastructure upgrades by leveraging the emotional investment of the fan base. Instead of asking for $100 donations, they were securing 5-figure and 6-figure multi-year pledges. In business terms, Smart treated the first 4 years as a loss leader phase. They burned massive amounts of cash up front, spending more than they brought in relative to their peers to build a product capable of generating a surplus later. They weren't trying to balance the books in 2018, they were buying the equity that would pay off in 2021. This aggressive deficit spending on infrastructure and talent acquisition created the on-field dominance that would eventually trigger the revenue explosion we see today. But here's where the math gets interesting. In venture capital, you burn cash hoping for a liquidity event. And for Georgia, that event arrived on January 10th, 2022. The back-to-back national championships didn't just fill the trophy case, they fundamentally altered the university's balance sheet. When you examine the fiscal year 2024 report, the University of Georgia Athletics Association reported a staggering $241.8 million in total operating revenue. That figure represents the direct financial correlation to lifting the college football playoff trophy. The correlation is undeniable. Winning at the highest level creates a revenue multiplier that average programs simply cannot access. The most fascinating metric isn't the ticket sales, although generating $36.6 million from gate receipts is impressive. The real story is found in the contributions line item. Following the championship runs, donor contributions surged to over $100 million. This proves a psychological trigger in the donor base. People do not pay for hope nearly as much as they pay for validation. When the team wins, the checkbook opens. The Magil Society pledges that funded the concrete in 2018 turned into liquid cash donations in 2023, creating a cycle of solvency that few athletic departments can match. You need to understand how efficient this operation actually is compared to its peers. If you look at Ohio State, they generate similar top-line revenue numbers, often exceeding $250 million. However, Ohio State frequently runs a deficit or breaks even. Why? Because they are funding 36 varsity sports. Georgia runs a leaner, more ruthless operation with only 21 sports. This strategic leanness allowed UGA to post a $47.3 million surplus in FY 2024. While other blue blood programs were leveraging debt to keep the lights on, Georgia was printing nearly $50 million in pure profit. That surplus is the war chest that allows them to weather the changing landscape of college athletics. Then you have the media rights windfall. The SEC's new deal with ESPN, valued at over $300 million annually for the conference, disproportionately benefits the top brands. Georgia isn't just a participant in this deal, they are the primary product. With an average of 8.6 million viewers per game, the highest in the sport, Georgia provides the inventory that justifies the network's investment. This viewership dominance ensures that when revenue distributions are calculated or future scheduling slots are determined, Athens holds all the leverage. However, during this phase, there was a shadow economy operating beneath the official university ledger. Before revenue sharing was formalized, name, image, and likeness (NIL) payments were handled by third-party collectives. The Classic City Collective mobilized an estimated $18 million in donor funds to pay players directly. This was the bridge financing of the dynasty. While the university handled the facilities and the coaching salaries, this external shadow budget ensured the roster remained elite. It was an unregulated, chaotic marketplace, but it worked because the donors were flush with championship excitement. But that era of unregulated spending was about to end, forcing the program to pivot once again. Everything changes when you look at the new corporate structure of 2024. The headline-grabbing news was Kirby Smart's contract extension, a record-breaking deal worth $130 million over 10 years. To the average observer, paying a football coach $13 million annually seems excessive, but you have to look at the valuation. The Wall Street Journal and other analysts value the Georgia football program at $1.92 billion. In that context, Smart is a CEO earning less than 1% of the enterprise value he manages. When you consider he is the primary driver of that billion-dollar valuation, the university likely views his contract as a bargain. But the biggest shift isn't the coach's salary, it's the House Fair NCAA settlement. Starting in July 2025, the amateur model is legally dead. Schools will be permitted and effectively required to share revenue directly with athletes. With a cap set around $20.5 million annually, this transforms the financial model from a donor-subsidized system to a salary cap professional league. Most athletic departments are terrified of this number. They don't have an extra $20 million lying around. This is where Georgia's $47.3 million surplus becomes their greatest competitive advantage. While schools like Florida State or Clemson are scrambling to find private equity cash to cover this new expense, Georgia can fund the entire $20.5 million player payroll out of their existing operating profit and still have nearly $27 million left over for reinvestment. This is the power of the financial machine they built. They are positioned to absorb the shock of professionalism without taking on debt or cutting other sports. To manage this new liability, Georgia partnered with Learfield Impact. This move signals a shift from relying on boosters to relying on corporate America. The goal is to integrate player payments into corporate sponsorship deals, utilizing the program's massive brand value to offset the costs. Instead of asking a local car dealer for a donation, they are structuring complex marketing rights deals that funnel money to the players through legitimate business channels. However, this new reality requires strict cost controls. The NCAA is eliminating scholarship limits, but imposing a roster cap of 105 players. This is a classic corporate restructuring move, reducing headcount to increase individual compensation. Georgia will have to cut the roster size, eliminating walk-ons and developmental players to afford the salary cap for the stars. It is a colder, more transactional way to run a team, but it is necessary to balance the books. The risks are real. The program is now committed to a high-burn model, $13 million for the head coach, $20.5 million for the roster, and millions more in debt service for the facilities. If the team stops winning, that revenue surplus could evaporate. but the fixed costs will remain. It is a high-stakes gamble that requires constant elite performance. They have built a Ferrari that costs a fortune to run, and it only makes financial sense as long as it stays in the lead. The era of amateur finances is dead, and Georgia is the prototype for the professional college franchise. Ultimately, Georgia didn't just out-recruit the competition, they outspent and outmanaged them. The era of amateur finances is dead, and Kirby Smart has built the prototype for the professional college franchise, a machine where return on investment matters just as much as touchdowns. This is a new blueprint for buying a dynasty. If you want more deep dives into the business behind the scoreboard, subscribe to Revenue Racers now and watch this video next.